So today, right now, we're dealing with this important case that is in none other than it's right near Clarkson, North Carolina. So this case involves a missing person, Brandon McDonald. That's correct. His full name is Brandon J. McDonald, and he went missing essentially right here in the area of Hope Mills, North Carolina. That's correct. Hope Mills, North Carolina. And there's been no real updates on what happened, but what's been interesting from looking at it so far, really getting into this case and seeing that there's another missing victim here as well that went missing in this area, is these trucks have been spotted a lot. That's correct. These types of trucks have been spotted a lot, and they belong to a natural gas company, apparently. Piedmont something natural gas. And it is unusual because Charlotte, North Carolina is nowhere near Hope Mills. And these trucks, of course, that are dealing with Piedmont and similar are all from Charlotte, North Carolina. And so this is starting to be really looked into much more because there's a lot of U-Haul trucks for some reason that also come in and out of this area all the time. And there's no explanation yet, because that's not normal at all. There's not going to be that many people who are moving in and out of this area so often. So to see a lot of U-Haul trucks just all of a sudden show up is clearly part of why this whole situation doesn't add up. But there's other things going on here. And one of the main things that's really been being looked at, why I call this an unusual missing person case now, so I'm looking into some other victims in this area now, too, is the fact that Dave Matthews is seen on the front of this nationwide insurance agency. Now, that'd be normal, if somebody was just going to name themselves Dave Matthews, but not in the way that this has been done, where their actual surname and everything is Dave Matthews, and they appear to be a part of the same family as Dave Matthews. That's right, of the Dave Matthews Band of the same exact name. So I don't know why that really is there. And so it's another part of this emerging mystery that I'm very interested in getting to the bottom of. You see a number of U-Haul trucks just moving in and out of the area, and some trucks that likely shouldn't be there, but are there for some reason. And then there's these natural gas company trucks which are coming along with them. So I believe firmly now that this may indeed be part of the reason why some of these people are disappearing. They've got out there in the middle of an area which is not a very friendly neighborhood. I mean, they've got a sawmill or something right here in this place called Hope Mills, North Carolina, apparently. And so, then I found out that Mr. McDonald was also a hiker. And so there are some things here that are really starting to add up. That should be a red flag to any kind of detective, Anyone who's just passively even noticing this should be a red flag to them immediately. And we see, they've got some houses here They are not numbered. They got some things going on here that just do not sit well. But this is the area where Mr. McDonald disappeared. This is the area where the other victim, on top of Brandon McDonald, apparently disappeared. And so, for a bit, we're going to be looking at this. And then, of course, we're going to go back to, there's the railroad tracks right there, yeah. We're going to go back then to Daniel Robinson, for sure. But this is important. This is right here on Johnson Street. These people have not been heard from since. And Mr. McDonald has not been seen since that date. So something certainly is happening out here that shouldn't be happening. And it's right near a railroad track. And they're supposed to corner those off so the public can't really get to them like that. So, that's concerning. And there are things that really need to be looked at here. So, let's spend some time here before, dealing with Robinson and also dealing with some similar things. Thank you. Remember, I told all of you why this was highly suspicious and needed immediate attention, for sure. The area happens to be headed by a pastor who was heavily linked to the Agape schooling program. And the Agape boarding school program was shut down in Missouri, but also had been going on in North Carolina for a while. It says David Smock, who was the school board physician and director for Cedar County, wanted on more than 3 felony child sex crime charges and so forth, went out and was arrested in Arkansas and then booked in Boone County. Now, why we want to look at this is because he is a direct associate of Pastor Norwood Tadlock, that's correct, and Ronald Tadlock of North Carolina. And they are some very, very troublesome people. In fact, one of them is associated directly with guess who? That's right, Jones. Now, this is why this is important to look at, right? This is very important to look at now because we see Pastor Tadlock, Norwood Tadlock Jr., that's correct, has his Harvest Baptist Church where, folks? Out in the middle of the church district where you always expect such things to be built? No, of course not. No, he has his church directly in the parking lot area. You can't make any of this up. Directly behind the Bath Studio Store, Fantastic Sam's, and the grocery store called Carly C's Grocery and Bakery. Why in the world would you build a so-called upstanding church directly behind the drug and pharmacy store? You tell me that. It doesn't happen. That's the reason why. So, what I've discovered here is alarming and is enough to make me and some others start to suspect that Pastor Harvard Tadlock Jr., Tadlock, in other words, knows a lot more about what's going on over here than he would ever admit, and may have been involved in, that's right, the kidnapping and murder of Brandon McDonald. It's a first exclusive here. Once again, folks, that's right. Pastor Tadlock Jr. may indeed be involved somehow in the disappearance and later homicide, if everything about the case that's come out so far is correct, the homicide of Brandon McDonald and perhaps another victim as well. He was an associate and friend of several different people, including David Smock and another serial killer in North Carolina. And yet he's here. That's right, folks. He's right here, free as a bird, running a church directly behind the pharmacy store. And we're going to be looking at that some more. We're going to go to the address. Thank you. This is again more of why this is pretty messed up and should have been looked at long ago. If anybody even knew about this. Mr. Norwood Tadlock Jr. Mr. Norwood Tadlock has more than 4 convictions for using and operating machinery, operating a diesel truck apparently too, without any kind of operator's license. 4 convictions for this. 3 convictions for never using any kind of tags and actually removing the tags from apparently one of these diesels or something that he was driving at the time. And then on top of that, an aggravated assault charge he's attempted to hide, and of course, working without an operator's license. Yeah. So, a very interesting person. And then what do we see? What do we find out? We find out that Mr. Tadlock does have another address. Yeah, he runs the Blossoms thrift store and church. Literally. You just can't make any of this up. That's what he does. And Blossoms, the less said about Blossoms, the better. But clearly there was something messed up, and has been something messed up going on for a long time with Pastor Tadlock. Well, that wouldn't have been the main topic of discussion. In fact, Blossoms is just couldn't get more obvious, unfortunately. And now that he's been connected to very possibly a couple of kidnappings and a murder, I would suspect people would finally be very curious about Mr. Tadlock if they had not heard of him yet. Because there's a lot of strange things about Pastor Tadlock, by far. And this is where he allegedly was housed at. Isn't that interesting? It's directly outside the mountain range where all the hikers go. So I find it very fascinating. That's what I'll say. I find it fascinating. I don't know if Pastor Tadlock, directly murdered McDonald and someone else. It seems very, very plausible, though, that he had plenty to do with their disappearance and may have murdered someone by far. And then, what in the world is he doing living out here where all those strange service trucks always go back and forth? So once again, this case is just opening up. It's very clear, though, that Brandon was kidnapped, that Mr. McDonald was kidnapped, and this pastor's terrible church had something to do with it. More to come. So once again, these new missing person cases that have been put up are equally as important and vital. So make sure to spread the word, get it out there, on a widespread basis. And some have asked, of course, why didn't you talk to the prosecutor's office? Well, folks, I went to the extent that that we really can go as far as with the situation that's been going on in Moab and so on. Now, they finally did arrest the hunters. The militia did, okay? But we still got to link that directly back to the courts, meaning to the jury itself and so forth. So they originally weren't looking at this, but now through your pressure, all right, and the pressure of the public itself, okay, people are now starting to really take this seriously, and as it needs to be, because it's an actual murder case now linked to other things, is what we've seen with this situation with Clark Jones. What we really need now, as I was saying, is we need you all to like the video, spread it far and wide, and spread the information and get it out there. That's the most important thing now. Part 3 is going up shortly, which will be dealing directly with how Jones was linked to, Bertolino, and specifically some other things. That's going to be going into detail on some certain aspects. But once again, we need you to, because it's been your efforts which has done this, so we need you to spread, like the videos, get it out there, far and wide, and let's bring some final justice to the situation in Moab and elsewhere, because now there's been confirmed at least 5 or more additional murders that are possibly linked to the same individual, Jones, and so forth. So thank you once again, but make sure to get the word out there. We need to have each member of the jury, pretty much everyone, looking at what the Craig impact is. Because I was talking to somebody, it finally got to a public legal notary who's in charge of all the notary associations and things, and they were looking at it and they were like, this is unbelievable if it's real, and it is. That's true. But it is real, and because it deals with the Craig, and we're talking about more than 20 possible victims who have been killed, you need to take it that serious. So spread the word. Thank you again. More updates soon.